Welcome to the 7 p.m. It's in the book literature study meeting. My name is Eileen and I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah, Eileen, everybody.
Please join me in a moment of silent meditation to reflect on why we are here, followed by the serenity prayer. In this meeting, we study the entire text of Alcoholics Anonymous and Dr. Bob's Nightmare. And now I get to introduce Meredith, our discussion leader.
Hey, everybody. My name's Meredith. I'm an alcoholic. And man, it's good to be here. If you don't have a book, there's a few left up here. We're in the very beginning, which is great. It's great if you can get in here as we start over again. And when we're in the early part of the book, I like to do sort of a recap by using a Q&A. For those who have been coming more, they know it's like an open book quiz. I'm going to ask a question you can answer if you know where it is in the book. And then we'll start the doctor's opinion. So, where's the first promise this book offers? Title page, Matt says. What's it say? Okay, so it says on the title page, the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism, past tense. My sponsor was happy to point out it's the story of how, because I don't know how. And she was correct. What kind of book is this? Jen says it's a textbook. What page is that on? It's on XI, the preface. It's on the preface, and it starts in the second paragraph where it says, because this book has become the basic text for our society, it has helped such large numbers of alcoholic men and women to recovery, there exists strong sentiment against any radical changes being made in it. Therefore, the first portion of this volume describing the AA recovery program has been left largely untouched in the course of revisions made for the second, third, and fourth editions. And a textbook is something, it's like an instruction manual, something we study and then put into practice. Okay. And it outlines the AA program, and a program is a plan under which action is taken toward a goal. So when we don't come into the AA program, I was very good at coming into AA and not going anywhere near those 12 steps for quite a while until I was convinced I was beaten into a state of reasonableness. What is vital to permanent recovery? First, we find the page,
And then we
raise our hand. It's because it's an open book quiz. Beth says XVII. Okay, so when Bill spoke to Bob and then Bob stayed sober, it proved Bill's theory that only an alcoholic can help another alcoholic. And it also proved the theory that strenuous work, one alcoholic with another, was vital to permanent recovery. And I love that they use the word permanent and not so much that first part about strenuous work, but I got to like that too. Okay. Does Alcoholics Anonymous have a monopoly on therapy for alcoholics? Beth is on it, XXI, the last page. Yet it is our great hope. So that's the very end of the forward to the second edition. And what I like is it says, if you haven't found an answer, we hope you'll find one here. So there's one answer offered by Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's a spiritual awakening or a personality change sufficient to recover from alcoholism through the practice of the 12 steps. And they say, if you do this, you may join us on the high road to a new freedom. So they're telling us right there that there's more to quitting drinking than just quitting drinking. It tells us we have to act better. We have to take the honorable and ethical course. And the last question for our recap is, what has preserved the integrity of the AA message? So the forward to the fourth edition references the big book in many, many ways to explain that is what has caused the massive growth and very rapid translation into many more languages around the world. And it also says on the second page that the literature itself is what maintains the integrity of the AA message, meaning the soundness, the completeness, the wholeness. If you're looking for what AA really offers, start with the text. Okay? Find yourself in those pages, and then you can branch out with more assurance and security that you've gotten the message. And we are going to start the doctor's opinion tonight. And before we do, I would just like to let people know opinion in this case is not just a casual, I think green is the best color in the world kind of opinion, although I do. The doctor's opinion is the formal expression of a professional judgment by an expert. Okay, so that and he was asked to write about the movement of Alcoholics Anonymous to give it some validity and help sell it, essentially. Yes, it's a formal expression of a professional judgment by an expert. And that's important because this book has a lot of expertise in it.
Okay, the doctor's opinion. We of Alcoholics Anonymous believe that the reader will be interested in the medical estimate of the plan of recovery described in this book. Convincing testimony must surely come from medical men who have had experience with the sufferings of our members and have witnessed our return to health. A well-known doctor, chief physician at a nationally prominent hospital specializing in alcoholic and drug addiction, gave Alcoholics Anonymous this letter. To whom it may concern, I have specialized in the treatment of alcoholism for many years. In late 1934, I attended a patient who, though he had been a competent businessman of good earning capacity, was an alcoholic of a type I had come to regard as hopeless. In the course of his third treatment, he acquired certain ideas concerning a possible means of recovery. As part of his rehabilitation, we commenced to present his conceptions to other alcoholics, impressing upon them that they must do likewise with still others. This has become the basis of a rapidly growing fellowship of these men and their families. This man and over 100 others appear to have recovered. I personally know scores of cases who were of the type with whom other methods had failed completely.
Okay. So, we of Alcoholics Anonymous. The we is the authors of this book, the combined experience of the first 40 or so, not necessarily the combined experience of everybody in the room. All right. And what he's saying is people that are alcoholics will be interested in the medical estimate of the plan of recovery. Again, that's the program, right? The plan of recovery is those 12 steps. And it says, surely to hear from someone who is an expert in the field, the medical field, might be valuable. And it talks about the sufferings of our members. You know, we are the people that we're not having any fun anymore. We might be trying to tell ourselves we're having fun, but if we're sitting here on Sunday night, we got to a point where maybe it wasn't any fun. And then they're talking about the well-known doctor is Dr. Soapworth, who worked at Towns Hospital. Interestingly, he had his own practice, but when the depression came, he lost his practice and had to go to work in a hospital, which was really good for us. And so he writes this letter and talks about having specialized in the treatment of alcoholism for many years. And he talks about 1934, Bill came in for the third time. And it talks about a competent businessman of good earning capacity. I was managing, people call it functioning alcoholic. That's questionable. But I still was able to make a living, and I looked like a competent business person as long as you didn't get too close and smell me. But he became hopeless. He worked his way down to the gutter. And that's usually where alcoholism takes us. It takes us on a trip downward, right? It talked about his third treatment, where he acquired certain ideas concerning a possible means of recovery. Those were brought to him by his friend Ebby, who drank like him, and Bill had never seen him 2 months sober. And he shows up offering this solution with the 6 steps of the Oxford group, which are lined out on page 263 of the book. And as it says here, as part of his rehabilitation. So the reason Ebby brought it to Bill is the same reason Bill did it. Part of his rehabilitation, which restores us to health, was to commence to present these conceptions to other alcoholics, all right? Impressing upon them they must do likewise. So it's like a benign pyramid scheme, all right? But what's interesting is it's part of my recovery. It's part of our rehab to do this. And instead of staying in a rehab for more than 30 days, we can come out of there and be rehabbed among other people, which is really nice. And it also says, do likewise. You don't have to figure out how to do this. People are like, I don't know how to sponsor. You know, they go through the steps. Like, if you've been through the steps, you have more experience than somebody that hasn't. We just have to be a little bit farther along on the path. And the thing you ask yourself is, what did I do? Because we should pass on what we have. What did I do? What was I willing to do? And if they're willing to do that, that's a good fit. And if they're not, we can still present. So when I think about doing this in my early days, I was sharing in meetings to throw out the line, right? So in sharing in meetings, I'm putting some ideas about the concepts out there, but the work really begins when I'm sitting across the table with one of them, like it says in the forward to the third edition, that at the core, it's one-on-one, okay? So, and then he says, and do this with others. Do this with others. And then it says this. So that very process that I just described is the basis of a rapidly growing fellowship of these men and their families. And over 100 of this appear to have recovered. So the basis of Alcoholics Anonymous is the 12 steps. The fellowship grows up around that. Okay. And he says, I personally know scores of cases. Those are 20s, aren't they? Scores are 4 score is 80 years, right? Okay, good. Were of a type with whom other methods failed completely. And again, I think if we're sitting in this meeting, our other methods failed completely. Okay. So there's got to be something to it.
Yeah.
What do you got? How about hopeless?
Hopeless. Yeah, I was hopeless.
He wrote hopeless on his name tag.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't know I was I mean, I knew I was hopeless in drinking, that, like, I couldn't do it, but I didn't know really how hopeless I was in every aspect of my life. And when I came in here, I had no idea that this power could restore all of my sanity. It's kind of fun. I came in here to find out what the secret sauce about quitting drinking was. Like, what did you do? I had no idea that it was a recreation of from wipe away what you think you know. And that's why we have to be pretty desperate to want to do it. If we still think we got it going on a little, and they tell you in the book here, go ahead, go out and try some more drinking or do it your way until you're ready. And then come in here and we can help you recover from a lot more than just putting down drink. So anyway.
Yeah, and the thing is, when we go out again, we don't all get it back. I like how we all deserve a second chance. Well, I don't know if I do or not, but I also know it's a crapshoot. If I might end up dead out there one way or another, or my mind might say, don't bother, it doesn't work. They're all talking about you, by the way, and they all know you're not here. So they've got to be talking about you, and you might as well just stop. Because my mind's kept me out for a long time until I got really, really desperate.
And then all of the wreckage of everybody, if you're dry, you can do more damage in my mind than if you're drinking. People, at least when you're drinking,
You have an excuse?
your family know, like, you boy. But when you're sober, when I hadn't drank in years and they didn't know what's coming. Anyway,
Yeah.
I hate to think back at that
Yeah.
because it was a waste. I could have come in and, it is what it is, but there's so much more to it. And that's all I really am happy when people get in here and find it. Anyone else? Thanks, Beth. Eileen, alcoholic again. That whole thing about the willingness and that the opening the door, I really believe that that's where the program really works the best. The night that I came in again and drank and was really at the end of myself, I went to a meeting and it's like God knew that there was this window of willingness, and I asked a girl to be she gave me her phone number. And the thought that 2 girls did it, that thought that they even did that. And I just thought, you know what, this is the moment. I better grab on here. And that really, she sent me to this book study. And that I always believe is just that little window. I don't know if hadn't asked her that night, if I would have been willing the next day or not. And that really kind of shows us that's why we're here, so that we're in the rooms when somebody has that moment where they need help and we're there to help. That's the power of it.
Okay.
All right. Right. Anyone else?
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. These facts appear to be of extreme medical importance. We're on the bottom of the doctor's opinion, XXV. Because of the extraordinary possibilities of rapid growth inherent in this group, they may mark a new epoch in the annals of alcoholism. These men may well have a remedy for thousands of such situations. You may rely absolutely on anything they say about themselves. Very truly yours, William D. Soperth, MD.
Okay, so the plain language big book says, I have worked with many patients who tried multiple methods to stop drinking, but nothing helped them. My patient's method seems to work, even for alcoholics who have struggled for a long time to get sober. And I think that's important because a lot of times we'll be in meetings and we'll be doing what we think is work, or maybe we're not even doing that, but we're not getting anywhere. And it turns out there's always a missing link. I can always trace it to something. But it says, because of this, I believe he can be able to save thousands of lives. And if you're reading this letter because you're not sure if this program can help you, I hope I've convinced you you can trust this program and all the people who have joined it. And that's kind of what he was saying. You can rely on that. And he says we may have a remedy for this. And his original letter said solution, and he changed it when he rethought it because he wanted it to have as much medical emphasis as possible. And this has become a remedy. So it was right in doing that. And I like where he's talking about these are facts. This works. This is a fact. Okay. Thank you. Anybody on Zoom? Okay, big no, keep there.
Okay. The physician who, at our request, gave us this letter has been kind enough to enlarge upon his views in another statement, which follows. In this statement, he confirms that we who have suffered alcoholic torture must believe that the body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as the mind. It did not satisfy us to be told that we could not control our drinking just because we were maladjusted to life, that we were in full flight from reality, or were outright mental defectives. These things were true to some extent, in fact, to a considerable extent with some of us, but we are sure that our bodies were sickened as well. In our belief, any picture of the alcoholic which leaves out this physical factor is incomplete. The doctor's theory that we have an allergy to alcohol interests us. As laymen, our opinion as to its soundness may, of course, mean little, but as ex-problem drinkers, we can say that his explanation makes good sense. It explains many things for which we cannot otherwise account. Though we work out our solution on spiritual as well as the altruistic plane, we favor hospitalization for the alcoholic who is still very jittery or befogged. More often than not, it is imperative that a man's brain be cleared before he is approached, and he has then a better chance of understanding and accepting what we have to offer.
Okay. So Bill requested that he write this letter for the reasons that Will was able to enlarge upon. And the idea is that he introduced his allergy theory, which is a new concept. I mean, theory was around a little bit longer than before he brought it to the forefront, but it changed. It was a major shift in the whole argument for what causes alcoholism. And what I find fascinating is it says in this statement, he confirms what we who have suffered alcoholic torture must believe, that the body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his mind. Now, I got to tell you, I came in knowing there was something wrong with my body. I got this backwards. Meaning, I knew I couldn't control the way I drank. And I wasn't those people that thought that my drinking was normal. And I didn't think that everybody drank that way. I knew that I drank differently, but I thought it was a drinking problem. I did not know. I didn't know it was something to do with once I drink, this happens. Okay. They knew that. Every medical opinion in here is from psychiatrists. They already knew we had a problem mentally. And I didn't know that until later. I just think it's funny that I kind of learned it backwards. Because suffering that alcoholic torture, I didn't put the two and two together that I had this obsession. Although when I think back on it, of course, I wrestled with to start or not to start, to start or not. But I didn't realize how little control I had, which is zero, once I started to drink. So what I like here is they first introduced that idea is that your body is really sick. And that it's not because you are low life or you have low character or you have a weak will. Although my will is weakened through the obsession and the allergy, but I'm very willful in other respects. So it is related to the alcohol problem, which does lean back to the mental obsession. But it goes on to say, how they put it? It did not satisfy us, us alcoholics, to be told we could not control our drinking just because we were maladjusted to life, that we were in full flight from reality, or we were outright mental defectives. First of all, I would have been very angry if someone said, you drink because you are not well adjusted to life. That would have really made me angry. Say, I got this, But I realized now, of course I drank to escape. Of course I drank to feel better, change the way I feel. I never would have believed I was in full flight from reality till the last year or so when it was evident.
How was outright mental defective? Did you like that?
Never got there.
Okay.
I got here before that.
Okay.
But what it's saying is, why do I drink like this once I start? And I really believed this allergy piece introduces the reason that happens because people that don't have the allergy, just like how many people here are allergic to peanuts? None. Any allergic to cats? All right. So out of all of us, two are allergic to cats. All right. What was I going to say about that? My body is different from theirs because I can pet a cat and not they can't. So I don't know that I have this physical thing that separates me from other drinkers. So when I drink, I think that everybody gets the same feeling when they're drinking, and they're just better at managing how much. And that was a major fact I had to learn about alcoholism. And that's why this book is so great. Because what I would hear in meetings is, I drink a handle a day. I drank every morning. And that wasn't my story. So I could start to think, well, if I don't drink a handle a day, maybe I'm not an alcoholic. But I knew the way I drank was not right, but I wanted to not qualify. As soon as I came here, I was like, how can I find my way out of this? You know? So I was always looking for disqualify. So this says what makes us all the same is the allergy to alcohol. That all of us, when we drink it, we do not have control over how much we drink. Now, it doesn't mean once in a while, we might be able to have two, which only tells us I don't have a problem. And then tomorrow I drink till 2 and the problem is back. So, so I don't know that I'm a separate entity. And that's what this doctor's opinion is saying. And it's no respecters of persons. And we have something physically different about us. Now, we also know today that there's a lot of science behind it. They can make charts and they can talk about chemical reactions and acetate and, consumption and what's the other word, absorption and all that stuff. But none of those charts, I am certain, would have made it any difference with me until I was ready to hear. My knowledge of what happens to me doesn't change the fact that I like what happens to me, except when I don't like it. And see, that's the problem. So anyway, yes, I have the first drink because I'm maladjusted. It's been a long day. Reality bites. I'm going for happy hour, right? But it doesn't explain why I have the 5th one and the 6th one and why it takes me places I don't want to go. So it goes on to say, so these things were true to some extent, Miss Outright Mental Defective, but in fact, to a considerable extent with some of us, but we are sure that our bodies were sickened as well. In our belief, any picture of the alcoholic which leaves out this physical factor is incomplete. And that's why so many people that love us don't understand, because they don't get that same feeling when they drink. So they don't understand why we can't stop, all right? And then it goes on to say, this allergy theory interests us. It's like, yeah, when you drink, you have this physical reaction that causes you to drink more. Even though right before at my brother's wedding, where I didn't want to show myself what an embarrassment his family was, and here's my contribution to that. He's marrying a really nice girl from a nice family in a very fancy part of Chicago, and I am not going to embarrass my brother yet. So I say I'm only going to have 2 drinks, but I go way past that. And the minute I drink, my decision-making is gone, and now my allergy is going to dictate. And I like to tell myself I changed my mind, but I know on that day I didn't. I know on that day I did not want to do that. And it was regrettable.
Tell us what you did. Don't.
Here's the problem. I don't remember. But I do know that I'd probably danced too much. And I knew when I was borrowing the lipstick from that woman in the bathroom, I was wearing a blue and green dress, and this lipstick was orange. And I didn't have mine. And so I borrowed hers, and I was fine with that. But I remember the horror of that and still going with it. But I just know I drank too much. And the fact that I don't remember what I did means, you know how freewheeling we get. So who knows? I know I didn't disrobe or anything, so that was good. But yes, I looked like Howard Johnson's. So anyway, all I know is that, it was just enough the embarrassment really came from not being able to control it after making that promise to myself. See, that's the other part of this thing. We stop telling people we're going to control it, but in our hearts we say, I'm going to control it. I got this. And as we start letting ourselves down, we start freaking ourselves out a little bit. And that's how I ended up here for good. I scared myself into coming here. So anyway, this says out, because I like what it says is, as ex-problem drinkers, we can say that his explanation makes good sense. It explains many things for which we cannot otherwise account. I cannot account for why I had more than 2 except for the allergy, or that I can't remember what I did, but I know it was embarrassing. It's like, because that's how I roll. It explains the things I said I wasn't going to do, and I did anyway. And there were countless ones of those. So and then it tells us how we work out our solution. What do we do when we get here? It says we're going to work out our solution, which means a particular method of solving our problem on the spiritual as well as the altruistic plane. So we have to move toward believing in something we don't really have any proof of in a lot of cases, and we certainly aren't sure of. But if we come here enough, we might hear somebody that has a connection to that and might give us enough confidence to follow that. So it is a stepping stone thing for a lot of us. I was talking to an alcoholic friend earlier. It really makes me crazy when people say, I'm really having a problem with step 2. I'm really having a problem with step 2. Step 2 is not knowing fully what God is. It's not even believing fully in what God is. It's stopping the belief in yourself. It's knowing I don't have the answer and I've got to come here to find something. It starts there. It doesn't have to start with any comprehension, any belief, any certainty at all. My first sponsor used to say, I came to suspect, and that worked. I mean, I was suspicious of this bunch, and now I'm, you're So we work it out on the spiritual, so we kind of have to lean into that a little bit. Maybe there's something intangible that we can't see that works. And also altruistic plane, in service to others. And even if I only have 10 days, if I've got a sponsor who says, go early and say hello to a couple people and try to remember their name for a week, that's something. Getting phone numbers saying, oh my gosh, I got my 1 year, my one day last week, and now you're getting your 1 day. I'm only 7 days ahead of you. Let's exchange numbers and commiserate. There's always something we can offer the next person. And when we do, we immediately gain self-respect and value. And so it restores us, like Jen was alluding to. I may not know much, but I know I'm a little bit farther ahead on and so we've got to be willing to step out. Altruism also looks like coming early, helping to set up, offering rides, just selfless regard for others. That's what it means. Try to think about, what can I do? In my morning prayer still, I'll say, God, show me what you want me to do for you today, because I'm not going to intuitively know that, all right? And then it says, it's also, we favor hospitalization for an alcoholic who's very jittery or befogged. More often than not, it is imperative, necessary that a man's brain is cleared before he is approached. Someone drunk comes to an AA meeting. Oh no, they're drunk at an AA meeting. So what we do is a couple of people break out in some altruism and say, oh my gosh, we want to listen to you. Let's go outside, right? And let them go on and then get them away home. But we don't spend any time trying to read from the book or convincing them, because they're not going to remember it. They're jittery, befogged, and need to be cleared. And it also says before they are approached, which means we do want to approach the sick, but we have to know, how sick are they? What do we do in this moment of the approach? And the sick might be the person sitting alone, who's been coming for 5 years, and their arms are crossed like this. Sometimes we purposely look like we're unapproachable, so you'll leave us alone. I mean, that's what I did. The best defense was an offense, and I looked like I was... Don't come near me. That's right. But no one's ever said, don't come talk to me, not yet. And then it says, don't get any ideas. But it does say, but once he's clear, he has a better chance of understanding and accepting. Understanding and accepting. And understanding is hard enough, let alone accepting. That's a long journey. And that's why it's important that we understand what we have and communicate in a way that other people can understand it, that they can relate to. All right? And it says what we have to offer. So we want to make sure we're offering what we can, because everybody can offer something on the path. All right?
Okay. Yes.
Yes. And the book talks about, in the step 2, it says, once we've accepted to try to do this, we're going to see a revolutionary change in our living and thinking. And so in a lot of times, first of all, spiritual and altruistic don't always parallel the progress. And a lot of us, like, I can make coffee, but I don't know if I can talk to anybody. And frankly, I started doubting my coffee abilities when I got here. I can make it at home. Can I make it here? I don't know if I can. So they kind of propel one another. And that's what I love about AA. There's a top for every pot. And I'll recognize that certain people feel awkward about doing this, but they're good about showing up or offering maybe a skill or a talent that they have and doing that, like joining a committee or doing a little function in the home group, something that does speak to their gifts. And then the rest grows in that. I mean, the spiritual part is really awareness of God. And so it starts wherever it starts. And sometimes it's you hear other people and you see them start to change and you think there's got to be something at work, even if I don't know what it is. We don't have to name it. And we don't have to, we definitely don't have to define it, because if we can, then that's not a God that's big enough for me. So they can all come along, but the idea is that the action will change us. It's the action. There's a lot of action in that. It's not a lot of, I mean, book studies are great. I love book studies because I learn about me here. I realize what I suffer from. And like even the real alcoholic says, let him drink for a day and he becomes disgustingly and even dangerously antisocial. And just let me fate for a day and see how I do. So there's a lot of ways to interpret this text that applies to me. So anyway, where do we leave off?
We have to get into the letter.
And that's, yes. So we have a few minutes. If anybody, I see people on Zoom are dying to share.
And
I have a lot of people that have experienced strength and hope and sobriety.
that could. There's some in the room here too.
There's someone in the room.
Okay. You're next.
I love that. Talking about when things are getting good, I might really be in trouble, right? The story of Fred. End of a perfect day, not a cloud in the horizon. I think I'll go back to the asylum. I mean, it's only us can take a good day and make it a bad day.
Right.
Thank you. You know, it's Leon, I'll give you a real quick second. This book is just disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed. No doubt about it. Thanks, everybody, for a good meeting.